Thanks for watching my cover of Something in the Way. I hope you enjoyed it. After uploading my poly cover using my Stella harmony, I got many requests for Something in the Way, so I knew I had to get to work on this one right away. This song is famously about the Yonge Street Bridge in Aberdeen, Washington, where Kurt would hang out under. The bridge goes over the Wishkah River. It's only 0.2 miles away from his childhood home, a 3-minute walk. The popular myth is that Kurt spent the night here, but friends that were in his circle said that myth came from Kurt exaggerating and being a storyteller. According to them, he never actually spent the night here, but would hang out under the bridge. Perhaps when trying to get space from his mom and stepdad, or to meet up with friends to smoke pot. When Kurt was cremated, a part of his ashes were spread in the Wishkah River. So in a way, the closest you could get to visiting a Kurt Cobain grave is to go here. I have visited the bridge twice. It's surreal, but kind of depressing at the same time. Even with it probably being Aberdeen's biggest tourist attraction, it's not well kept up. And you have to watch where you walk to make sure that you don't step on any used needles. I will say though, I listened to Something in the Way while I was there, and as a Nirvana fan, it was one of the most powerful experiences. The guitar I'm using is a vintage Stella Harmony H912 from the late 60s. There are some variations of this model, some with different pickguards, some with different things written on the headstock, but I got extremely lucky with this one. It is exactly like Kurt's Stella. The only way I could possibly get any closer to Kurt's guitar is if I played his actual Stella. There's the famous story, as told by Butch Vig, as he explains why this song was the hardest one to record for Nevermind. After some failed takes in the live room, Kurt went into the control room in frustration. He sat on the couch with his Stella guitar and said to Butch, "This is how the song needs to sound," and sang so gently that Butch describes it as a whisper. Butch then said, "Hold on." He set up some mics right there, unplugged some machines that make noise, and held his breath as Kurt recorded his entire part on the couch in the control room. Christ and cellist Kurt Canning had a hard time tuning to Kurt's guitar because it is slightly out of tune. If you look up tabs for this song, a lot of places will say that the guitar is in drop C. That's technically incorrect. If you tune to drop C and play along with the track, your guitar will sound off. I sat down with my Stella and I tuned it to the song itself and found that the exact tuning is in drop C plus 46 cents. So it's somewhere in between drop C and drop C sharp. On my tuner, this is how the low E string reads. This slightly off down tuning plays a big role in this haunting sound, but something that plays an equally as big role is the mixing. I want to be very upfront that a Stella harmony, even when tuned perfectly to this song, does not naturally sound like this. It sounds like this. It's really important for me to point this out because after posting my poly cover, I've had several people tell me that they are now on the hunt for an H912 after seeing my video. Because of the connection to Kurt, these guitars are not cheap. So I feel like it's kind of my duty to set a realistic expectation to everyone watching this, that if you get one of these guitars, it will sound very close, but you can't strum it and expect it to sound exactly like Nevermind. I've been noticing recently that there is a minority that is quite vocal about how they think I do too much processing in my videos. My goal with this video is to get as close as possible to the Something in the Way Nevermind sound. Just a friendly reminder that while Bleach and In Utero production-wise are both pretty straightforward, Nevermind is not. Nevermind has a huge production value to it, and in my opinion, it's one of the best rock mixes of all time. There's a lot going on in every song's mix, and that's before we even talk about the mastering. So this is what I did to get my Stella to sound as close to Nevermind as possible. Before we get deep into the mix, I'd like to give a big shout out to everyone who has supported me through buymeacoffee.com. These videos take a lot of time to research and film and edit, so the extra caffeine is really helping out. I can't thank you guys enough. First off, I did some quick EQ. I did the same thing for Poly, but the EQ in that video is very minimal. It's pretty easy to quickly EQ your way to the poly sound when recording with a Stella, but I can't say the same thing for Something in the Way. This one was harder than I thought it would be. I EQ'd it, which definitely cleaned it up, but it was sounding painfully thin, especially in the verses when it's just guitar and vocals. I ran the final Nevermind track through an EQ analyzer, and what I saw in the verses kind of blew my mind. This is the read that I got. Do you see how much low end there is when it's just guitar and one vocal? All this right here. When you go 60 Hz and below, those are sub-bass frequencies. That's the lowest audible frequency range that a human can hear. An acoustic guitar does not naturally produce these frequencies. Some things that do would be like a bass guitar and digital instruments like synths and pads. I'm very comfortable betting that this right here was 100% done in the mixing stage, which completely makes sense. I'm willing to bet that mix engineer Andy Wallace heard how thin and empty just the ragged old Stella and Kurt's whispered vocals sounded in the verse, and wanted to do something to not only add low end, but to add on to the eeriness of the entire track. I can't tell you what Mr. Wallace exactly did to get these frequencies in the final mix. That would be like trying to get the secret ingredient out of a chef. But this is what I did in an attempt to match it. I added this R-Bass plugin to my guitar track. It's a bass and sub-bass frequency booster, and I've only ever used it super conservatively on bass guitar and kick in a full-on rock mix, especially for heavy songs. I had to play around with the intensity for quite a bit to find the sweet spot, but I finally found a way to fill in the track that to me sounds similar to what is heard on Nevermind. With 86 Hz being pushed, my Stella finally had that funeral-like drone that we hear Kurt's Stella has on the track. Interestingly, what I dialed in for the first verse did not fit in with the second verse. The sub-bass frequencies in the second verse are pushed even more than in the first, perhaps as a way to keep the intensity going, now that the listener was introduced to the full instrumentation of the chorus. So I did the same. In the second verse, I have this plugin pushing 86 Hz even harder. I tamed it down a lot in the choruses. I found that it was now competing with the bass track when I had it pushed that hard. It's still there, but with much less intensity, to give room for the bass guitar to breathe. A quick thing that I want to add before we wrap this up. After hyper-analyzing the guitar track, I'm convinced that in the verses, Kurt did not just play the open C chord like this. That's what he did live, and what virtually everyone who covers this song usually does. But I'm confident that I hear the full D chord shape there, with the G and B strings like he does in the chorus. It just seems like sometimes they are fully heard, and sometimes they are not. So I think that Kurt had them fretted for the entire verse, but changed up how delicately he strummed that chord with each passing. So, Something in the Way would fall into the same category as like Lithium, and Bloom, Drain You, and Penny Royalty, just to name a few, for songs that Kurt played differently in the studio versus live. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram at Nirvana Guitars, and subscribe and check out my other Nirvana Gear videos right here on YouTube.